Hi guys, there's a little delay here, so I'm sitting here watching my delay and probably confusing myself, but I think we are live and I'm seeing if we're picking anybody up. I'm doing this on my Spine Center page as opposed to my personal page, which maybe is a mistake, but if you guys aren't able to find it, hopefully you will be able to come back and watch it when I share it. So sorry about that, but I went ahead and did it on the Spine Center page. So tonight, we're going to talk about something very interesting. We're going to talk about sauna therapy and all kinds of different sauna therapy. The type of sauna therapy that I believe to be the most beneficial is near-infrared sauna therapy. And I don't know that if people got the impression that that's really all I'm talking about. I'm really talking about all types of sauna therapy and the benefits that you can derive from sauna therapy. So I'm waiting for a few more people to join here. Maybe I'll play my intro one more time because you know how much I love doing that, so. So my fun little intro there. Okay, so let me see if I can get my slide deck to pop up here. So there's slide deck. So this is near-infrared sauna therapy. And really I'm talking about all sauna therapy, but then I'm going to kind of hone in on near-infrared sauna therapy. It's effective for detoxification. It's extremely cost-effective. It's something that you can do at home, and it has recently, in recent years, become a lot more affordable for people. It used to be that these saunas were extremely expensive, and you would have to, many years ago, it was thousands of dollars. Then they came down to $3,000. I bought a $3,000 sauna at one point. And those are still available, and there's nothing wrong with them. My first expensive one was actually a Far Infrared Sauna, and we'll talk about the difference. But now you can get a near-infrared sauna, which is probably the best. I believe it's the best, and you can even get them for very cheap, for less than $1,000. They're portable, they fold up. They're made of materials that don't outgas, and that just means that some of the lower quality materials, when they're heated, will produce a vapor that you're breathing. And if it's plastic or some sort of toxic material, that can be bad for you. A lot of people believe that. And so the sauna that I have that's near infrared is made of bamboo, and that doesn't outgas. So anyway, or if it does outgas, it's something natural, a natural type of material. Sorry. So I had a long day, had a hectic day, but I made it here. So anyway, so let's talk about sauna therapy. So the history of sauna therapy has been around for a very long time. The Native American people have heard of sweat lodges, and sweat lodges are a form of sauna therapy, and they've been around for thousands of years. They're in many cultures: Mexican culture, Islamic culture, Japanese culture, Mayan culture, Russian culture. And it's interesting that the Egyptians actually, in Egyptian papyrus, they cite treating tumors with heat. Okay, and we'll talk about why that's significant. But tumors have been treated with heat as many as thousands of years ago. Indian Ayurvedic medicine, they talk about hot baths. So what is sauna? Sauna is a Scandinavian word that refers to dry heat. It's a heat source plus an enclosure. There's different ways to approach it. There's total body sauna, as well as one where you leave your head outside. And honestly, I end up leaving my head outside more often, but certainly you can do an entire body sauna as well. Your temperature is raised several degrees, and your body responds by sweating to cool off. And that's kind of where the magic happens. We'll get into that. But bacteria, viruses, and tumors are susceptible to that heat. A heat that doesn't hurt your normal cells up to a certain degree, but can certainly help eliminate those abnormal cells or kill those abnormal creatures. To steal Roby Mitchell's term, creatures. Sweating also eliminates toxins such as heavy metals, radioactive particles, chemicals, etc. So ways to utilize a sauna. Today we're talking about for healing or for detoxification, for removal of chemicals, metals, biological toxins such as pesticides and herbicides and things like that, radioactive toxins even. But they can also be used for relaxation, and I'll explain a little bit later how important that can be, or how powerful that can be. Health maintenance, again, just keeping your body in tune. Spiritual development in some cultures, and I do believe it's a form of, it is a good way to heal yourself spiritually. So let's talk a little bit, these are just a few, we're going to talk just about a few organic chemical toxins. And there's many of these. The bottom line is we're surrounded by toxin, guys. We're swimming in it, we're breathing it, we're eating it, we're sleeping in it, we're bathing in it. And so it's not a matter of can you eliminate all the toxins. Really, all you can do is mitigate. You can reduce the amount of toxins that you're exposed to, and of course, expedite the excretion or removal of these toxins from your body in the form of excretion through your skin, which is sweating, urination, and of course through excrement. And removing all of these things like formaldehyde, phenols, pesticides and herbicides. That's a lot of people like to talk about glyphosate, phthalates, PCBs from plastics, trichloroethylene. And again, this is just a very short list, but these are very common ones. And these are ones that we're literally being constantly bombarded with. So, and again, I've already kind of said this, it's in your food, your water, your air, your clothing, your hygiene products, and it's impossible to avoid exposure. All you can do is try to minimize your exposure and then make sure that you are taking advantage of the ways to eliminate these toxins from your body. The EPA, it's kind of funny because we like to bag on the government, say the government's dumb, but then here I am quoting the government. I've always kind of found that ironic. But the EPA says, and of course, there's a lot of things I don't like about the EPA, but I think this data is probably accurate. The EPA says that toxins are responsible for 80% of all cancer deaths. That's a big number. And so these toxins do cause abnormal metabolism, reactions, DNA breaks, etc. In our cells, there's all kinds of different mechanisms that can lead to cancer. Cancer is just a cell that grows out of control. It doesn't do the things that a normal cell does. And it sort of takes over your body, spreads all over your body. Several billion pounds of pesticides and herbicides are sprayed into our food supply annually. So you're eating these toxins. You've got to get rid of them. If you can, you've got to try and get rid of these toxins. Here's a question already, and I'll just go ahead and answer it because what will happen is I'll forget. No, far infrared saunas are fantastic. I have a far infrared sauna. I'll explain the differences later. No, they're fantastic. I just believe near infrared saunas are better. I think any sauna is better than no sauna, and a hot rocks sauna or a steam sauna at your local gym is 90% as good as any of the other saunas that I'm talking about. But you'll understand when I go over the physiology and the physics of these different saunas why the near infrared sauna is probably the best sauna. It sort of depends on what your goals are. But I'll go through that. But no, far infrared sauna is fine, and I'd much rather see people doing any form of sauna than not doing sauna at all because they're worried about whether they have the best one. Kind of like diet. When people worry about diet and they start nitpicking, is that GMO corn or whatever? I'm glad that you're not eating Big Macs and fries. So you get a little GMO corn on your Jason's Deli salad, you're going to be just fine. Don't get hung up on those details. They paralyze you in mental paralysis and prevent you from making even any change. Any change towards a healthier lifestyle is a good change. And guys, if someone could just mention if you can hear me okay. I had an issue with my audio and my microphone the other night, so maybe someone could just tell me, yeah, I can hear you fine. So toxic metals, second only to pesticides and herbicides, as per the EPA again. Pesticides often contain heavy metals as well, lead, copper, arsenic, others, mercury, etc. So let's just run real quickly through some of these toxic metals, because these are, okay, thank you, Kathy. These are a big deal. So there are more than 100 conditions that have been described from lead toxicity. And, a lot of people believe that the fall of the Roman Empire was as a result of their plumbing. They basically, if you will, invented or discovered, utilized lead in the plumbing to move water around within the Roman Empire. And this led to lead toxicity and essentially poisoned the entire empire, and they didn't know. So kind of funny. I think our empire is being poisoned right now too with all kinds of crazy things, not excluding politics, unfortunately, but I won't get into that. But certainly the things that we're eating, we're drinking, the chemicals that we're being poisoned with, we are somewhat comparable to the Roman Empire, in my opinion. So it's a lot of neuromuscular and bone diseases, and unfortunately lead I shouldn't get into these toxins too much. I'm just going to try to cover these briefly because I could talk about this for a long time. But lead's a big one because lead's really bad. Fractures, mental function, hyperactivity, anemia, others. Sources include old paints. I don't think there's a lot of lead paint anymore, but that was a big one. Kids would eat lead paint chips. Inks, pesticides, hair dyes, solder. I think most companies have been encouraged or forced to stop putting lead, but I think a lot of things from China could still potentially be affected with these. So again, I'll try to get through this quickly because I think you guys are more interested in how to get rid of these toxins, not about how bad they are. I think you all know these toxins are bad. Cadmium can cause hypertension, heart disease, cancer, fatigue, arthritis, etc., back pain. And you get this from smoking, from refined foods, tap water, etc. Rapid elimination can cause fatigue. So sometimes when you detoxify, that's a good point. Cadmium apparently is a good example. You can actually feel worse when you're first detoxifying because you're sort of mobilizing these things. Lead is stored in your bones and can be very deeply embedded in your bones and take a long time to get out of your body. And when you do start to remove these toxins, the fact that they're now being moved from, say, your bones or from some other reservoir into your blood can make you feel sick, can make you actually feel worse. You say, hey, this sauna is making me feel worse. And that, that's not uncommon. And the other thing I think was that, well, that's the next slide. Some of these things, the author of this book, Lawrence Wilson, unfortunately, I think I left my book in my car. I was going to show you guys, but his name's Lawrence Wilson. He's the major source that I'm using for this talk. I highly recommend his book. He's the guru of sauna therapy. He's a medical doctor. He's done a lot of research. He has a website on sauna therapy. So mercury, another really bad one that I want to cover. Almost everyone today has been exposed to mercury, whether it's through vaccines, through eating fish, etc. It can it can affect your pituitary axis through hypothyroidism, immune diseases, digestive problems, learning disability, autism, ADHD. Sources include fillings, food like fish, vaccines, I've already said that, contact lens solution, air pollution. When you get in a sauna and you sweat out your mercury, it actually has a fishy odor, which is kind of interesting. Another thing to understand too is that there's something called the LD or the lethal dose. And when they talk about the LD1 or the LD1 means the dose of a certain, in this case a heavy metal, let's say mercury, the dose of mercury, it could be anything, required to kill 1% of the population. So if I had 100 people in a room, what's the dose that it takes to kill one of those people? In other words, 99% survive with that dose. It's called the LD1. The LD50 means it kills half the people, and then the LD100 means it's dose strong enough to kill everyone. So if you take an LD1, the dose of mercury, okay, that is high enough to kill 1% rather, 1 out of 100, 1%, and then the dose of lead that has the concentration to kill 1 out of 100 people, and you put that lead and that mercury together in the same person, the LD goes to 100. In other words, it kills 100% of people. So in other words, the very small dose of each one of those works synergistically to become lethal. So you think, oh, that's just a really small dose of mercury. Oh, that's just a really small dose of lead. You put those together and now you've got a deadly combination because they work in synergy. So that's an important thing to understand. That's why, you can say, oh, well, my lead's not that bad. Well, you add a little bit of mercury to that and it can really affect you in a very adverse way. So other toxic metals, aluminum, fluoride, chlorine, arsenic, copper, physiologic metals even, such as iron, manganese, chromium, and selenium in really high doses, but those as well. Biological toxins, chronic infections can play an important role in many conditions, whether it's a bacteria, a fungi, virus, or prions. That's like Kuru or Jakob Creutzfeldt, little proteins that can get in your brain and basically give you mad cow disease. Endotoxins are produced and released by bacteria, and they're some of the most toxic substances known. And that's the chemicals released by a bacteria that can cause you to become septic. Your blood pressure drops, and you can die when someone becomes septic with some of these bacterial infections. Heavy metal poisoning makes one much more susceptible to infection, and sauna heats the body and improves circulation to help clear these toxins. And we'll talk about how it clears these toxins here momentarily. So this is a real talk here, guys. Hope you're enjoying this. I'm kind of, I'm going everywhere from the ride in the car with me where I'm jabbering to giving you visual aids, and now we're going to use a real, what we call a slide deck or a PowerPoint presentation. A lot of people refer to it, going through these things. Radiation toxicity. This is, people didn't think about this, but since Fukushima happened, I think you should think about it. U.S. documents show, again, the government itself shows that 1,250 nuclear weapons have been involved in accidents. In other words, someone's driving down the road with a missile in the back and falls off the back. I don't know that necessarily means radiation was released, but it's probably not good to drop nuclear weapons on the ground. Estimated worldwide contamination will cause 175 million cancer deaths and 350 million non-fatal cancers. 235 million illnesses and 588 million children will have birth defects. I'm not sure over what period of time that was. Those are big numbers, but the point is radiation toxicity is bad stuff. Just like we know from Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Depleted uranium ammo is used in war. And so literally we're taking our nuclear waste. This is a hell of a way to get rid of our nuclear waste. We take these depleted uranium bullets and go shoot them at people and contaminate their soil, contaminate the people, and basically cause them to get cancer, specifically leukemia. Anyway, horrible. Radiation is carried on mineral particles into the cell, and that's what actually causes the damage. Okay, so those are the toxins. Those are basically the toxins. I talked about radiation, I talked about heavy metals, I talked about pesticides, herbicides, and even some of the biological metals that are inside everyone's body. So let's talk a little bit about the nervous system, because all these things are pertinent. They're all going to lead up to, here I'll transition here for a second. They're all going to lead up to those are what we're getting rid of. They're going to lead up to now we're going to talk about the nervous system and how the nervous system works and how the sauna therapy leverages the nervous system and to eliminate toxins and also some other health benefits associated with that. So nervous system is broken up into the voluntary and the autonomic nervous system. So voluntary means cognition. I'm thinking 2 + 2 is 4. I'm moving my arm to play tennis. I'm touching and I can feel that touch. So those are voluntary movements. Now so everybody understands that. What we're going to talk about in reference to sauna therapy is the autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system is made up of 2 components, the sympathetic and parasympathetic, and I was just going to start talking about it, but probably it'll then be on the next slide, and I'll say it twice, so let me advance here. The sympathetic nervous system is our fight or flight, okay? So sympathetic directs muscle to the blood and to the brain. So the saber-toothed tiger comes after you, and you have to say to yourself, okay, I'm going to fight the saber-toothed tiger. I'm going to swing my arms. I'm going to swing my sword. I'm going to, fight the thing, or I'm going to run. Either way, I need to be able to think, and I need to be able to use my muscles. And it shunts blood away from the core, away from the organs, and moves that blood to the muscles in the brain. So you can either fight or you can run. Fight or flight mechanism is what the sympathetic nervous system everybody thinks of when they think of the sympathetic nervous system. Heart rate and blood pressure increase. Blood to the digestive and elimination organs, the core decreases, activates the thyroid and adrenal glands, the sympathetic nervous system, and the body enters a state of catabolism. Catabolism means breakdown. We're going to break down muscle, we need energy. We're going to break down tissues because we need energy, we need building blocks. And so that's what the sympathetic nervous system does. As opposed to, so think of running, you're getting in a fight, you're angry, you're being, what would trigger the sympathetic nervous system? You're being taxed too much, you're having spousal strife, getting a divorce, a death in the family, a sick child, any of those things would stress and this is basically what everybody is constantly experiencing is overstimulation of their sympathetic nervous system, the portion of their autonomic nervous system, the unconscious nervous system. It's constantly being stimulated. We're constantly being stressed. We're constantly being pushed. It's very unhealthy. It's very unhealthy. It raises our blood pressure. Then there's the parasympathetic nervous system. This is the nourishing, the healing, the regeneration. This is a state you go into when you're meditating. It's an anabolic state of rebuilding, okay? It stimulates digestion. It stimulates immune function. It stimulates the elimination organs, the bladder, the kidneys, the bladder, the urinary system, as well as the GI system through excretion of fecal matter, as well as excreting toxins through the skin. The skin is also an organ of elimination. The systems include the liver, the kidneys, the pancreas, the stomach, the intestines. This is the parasympathetic nervous system preferentially shunts blood to these areas. It's activated by rest, relaxation, and happy thoughts. So that's very important to understand here. Let's just stop for a second. And the sympathetic nervous system is stress. It's something that's making you worry. It's making you worried sick, which we constantly are. I mean, who really has time to sit down, relax, meditate, and have happy thoughts? That's the parasympathetic nervous system. Sorry, my mouth is dry. I've had a busy day. I've got a busy day tomorrow. The parasympathetic nervous system is absolutely understimulated. That's why it's so important to meditate, to relax, to have positive interaction with family, to feel good. It's very healthy. It'll actually make you live longer. All right, so now we're going to talk about sauna therapy. And this is why, because sauna therapy stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system. That's what I'm driving at here. It forces, so in meditation, a lot of people find it very difficult. I find it difficult. You can get better at it. And a friend of mine who has a PhD in psychology named Stephen Moore, he and I talked about it extensively the other day. He's actually going to potentially, at some point when we have time, he's also got kids, young kids, going to do a Facebook Live because he's really become become somewhat of an expert. He has a degree in a PhD in psychology. He's become somewhat of an expert on meditation. He's really incorporated it into his wellness program. But that puts you in a parasympathetic state. Meditation does. And so does sauna therapy. But you have to do it yourself. You have to put your mind there with meditation. And I'm just so hyper and so busy and have so much coming at me that I find that difficult. The beauty of sauna therapy for someone like me is that it forces me into a parasympathetic state. It turns on my parasympathetic nervous system whether I want to be in that parasympathetic state or not. So in phase one of sauna therapy, temperature stays at the basal level, whatever it was. Sweating is light, but it starts to happen. You know what happens is your body's absorbing heat when you're inside of a sauna. And at some point, your core temperature rises to the point where it has to release that heat. And that's what sweating does. Sweating allows that heat to basically bleed away, to exit the body so that your temperature, so you don't become so hot that you start to damage your cells in your body. It inhibits that you're being audited, you're getting a divorce, your spouse is yelling at you, throwing bricks at you, part of your nervous system. It forces it down regulates it. It reduces heat production. It improves oxygenation. We'll talk about how that is through a release of something called nitric oxide. Dilation of peripheral vessels, again, through release of nitric oxide. Someone got the Nobel Prize for figuring that out. Decreased internal organ congestion, relaxation of the muscles, and increased flexibility of the tendons and the ligaments. So that's an overview. We're going to go more detail into phase one, and we're going to go in more detail into phase two, but I'm just sort of going over phase one and phase two. In phase two, it usually starts 10 to 30 minutes into the sauna therapy. And for me, I feel it when I'm going into phase two. I'll be laying there, and all of a sudden, I don't know that I necessarily feel my temperature rising. Your temperature can go up anywhere between 1 and even up to 3 or 4 degrees when you enter phase two. But I definitely feel my cardiac stroke volume change. All of a sudden, it feels like my heart's going. It's the membrane permeability of the cardiac muscle changes, and all of a sudden your stroke volume goes up. So it feels like you're on a Stairmaster in my far infrared sauna, especially because it heats me up so much. I feel like I'm laying there on a Stairmaster. I feel like I'm running on a Stairmaster, but I'm laying there and I'm just sweating like crazy. I'll sometimes lose 2 or 3 pounds. That's getting into phase two. And that's where your parasympathetic nervous system has been turned on. And so that's where the magic happens. That generally starts in about 10 to 30 minutes. And so if you've never done sauna therapy before, it might start at 10 minutes. If you've done it a lot, it might take a little bit longer. It all seems to start for me at about 10 to 15 to 20 minutes. Again, your body temperature can rise abruptly. If I put a little temperature monitor on your forehead, you see it pop. Your blood is shunted to the surface of your skin. Your heart rate and sweating increase. And the greatest benefits occur during phase two. All the blood is now circulating preferentially to your internal organs and decongesting them and bringing the toxins that are trapped in your liver. Your liver is the oil filter of your body, and allowing you to sweat those out, allowing you to sweat those toxins out. The weaker cells die more quickly. We want to get rid of those weaker cells and make room for the healthy cells. The pathogenic organisms, and that means viruses and parasites and bacteria, they can't take the heat. They can't take the heat in the kitchen, so they get killed. They get killed off, and that's a wonderful way to remove those guys from your body. And resolution of infiltrates and exudates. Basically, fluid is always moving from your vascular system into your interstitial system, and then moves back into your vascular system through what's called your lymphatic system. And we should have a talk about that, because I do a lot of rebounding, and rebounding is a really great way to enhance your lymphatic system. But this helps also. Sauna therapy helps with resolution of those infiltrates and exudates. So common to all forms of sauna therapy, whether it's a hot rock sauna, a steam sauna, a far infrared sauna, a near infrared sauna, is phase one. Balancing of the autonomic nervous system, inhibition of the sympathetic, stimulation of the parasympathetic, which parasympathetic controls sweating, increased peripheral circulation, inhibition of normal heat production, and this is one of the most important benefits of sauna. And most people have chronic overstimulation of their sympathetic nervous system. Most people are stressed out. If you ever say, I feel stressed out, I'm all stressed out, life stresses me out, then you're probably overstimulating your sympathetic nervous system. And it relieves the stagnation of blood in the internal organs. It shunts the blood preferentially to the internal organs. And now those metabolites, those chemicals, those toxins, those pesticides, those heavy metals, whatever it is that's maybe trapped in those internal organs can move freely, come to the surface of the skin to be excreted. Also common to all forms of sauna, no matter what type it is. So it's when I say 90% of the benefits come from any form of sauna. It doesn't have to be a near, a far infrared sauna. It can be, again, an Indian sweat lodge, which is also spiritual. So is the induction of sweating. Evaporation of water has a cooling effect. That's how it helps to lower your body temperature. The sweat is composed of interstitial fluid, blood, and lymph. Primarily, it's a parasympathetic function. We want to activate that because we just don't get nearly enough parasympathetic stimulation, guys. We just don't. We're all too busy working and running and paying taxes and dropping the kids off at school and being told by our boss, this, that, or the other, and we're constantly being stressed out. Your body will actually become acclimatized with a 4-fold increase in sweating. It has the effect of increasing your aldosterone and loss of sodium. This is interesting. So this is like going to the gym. Okay, here's how you think of this. If you study math, your brain neurons, your neural connections become better. If you lift weights, your muscles get bigger. If you do sauna therapy a lot, then your body becomes better at sweating, better at increasing the amount of sweat that you push out, but the loss of sodium decreases. So it gets better at pushing out the toxins, but not losing the important things like sodium, the electrolytes that you need. And you'll see a loss of sodium in sweat that decreases as much as tenfold in 6 weeks. So your body really gets good at hanging on to that salt, which is amazing. Looks like I spelled something wrong. More of the skin sweats as the program progresses. Hey, let's fix that. Right there on live, Facebook Live. Okay. Men generally sweat more easily, and women generally need a little bit more sauna time. I don't know what that means. If you get into phase, maybe that means it's harder for women to get into phase 2. But once you're in phase 2, you want to try to get 10, 20 minutes in phase 2, and you get lots of benefit from that. So common to all forms of sauna. Again, phase 1 we're talking about. Improved oxygenation, more blood flows to the lungs and skin, attempt to cool. It also cools you by flowing to your lungs as well. Increased pulse and stroke volume. Okay, so the heart is your heart's beating faster, but your stroke volume's bigger. So you're turning over the blood in your body more times per minute. That's the consequence, because a larger stroke volume and an increased pulse rate simultaneously means a lot more blood's flowing, and it's flowing through those internal organs to detoxify and remove congestion. Skin becomes more efficient at transferring oxygen in the blood, and clearing of bronchial and lung infection improves congestion. Clearing of bronchial and lung infections and congestion improves O2 absorption, because you're killing those bugs as well as in decreasing congestion in the lungs. Again, better blood flow. Also for phase 1, dilating of peripheral vessels, shunting blood toward the body surface is a primary mechanism to reduce the temperature. So we're shunting that hot blood to the surface and then releasing that heat through sweating. And of course, at the same time when you're sweating, releasing those toxins. Inhibition of the sympathetic fibers in the posterior hypothalamus that causes vasoconstriction is the mechanism of action. So we're actually inhibiting the sympathetic nervous system by a mechanism in the brain, in a anatomic area of the brain called the posterior hypothalamus. That isn't real important, but it is. If you're doing research on this, it's key. You really want to understand it. Full vasodilation can increase heat transfer in the skin 8-fold. So you can really transfer that heat out, really transfer those toxins out, and sweat. Again, I told you I've lost pounds before, 2 to 3 pounds. Vasodilation is mediated by the release of nitric oxide. I actually have given this talk before, and I told him that the last time. This is actually phase 2. I put this on the wrong slide. But that gives me a chance to make sure I bring up the fact that someone got the Nobel Prize for discovering this. So this isn't some hocus pocus stuff. What happens is the cells in the body excuse me, my throat is dry. Release nitric oxide, endovascular endothelium, red blood cells, release the nitric oxide, and the nitric oxide causes relaxation of the smooth muscle that surrounds the blood vessels and increases blood flow. There's three different types of basic muscles, guys. Skeletal muscle, I'm lifting weights. Smooth muscle is in your gut, in your ureters of your kidneys, and in your vasculature, and cardiac muscle, which is its own type of muscle. But anyway, it causes the vasodilation of smooth muscle in the vascular system. So, again, in phase one, we're relieving internal congestion. Passing congestion of blood in the vital organs diminishes oxygenation and causes accumulation of CO2 and toxins. So you really do need to get good blood flow through those internal organs. And sympathetic inhibition combined with that CO release, combined with the CO release is what causes peripheral vasodilation, forces the blood to the surface, reducing internal organ congestion and allowing detoxification, relaxing the muscles, enhancing flexibility of tendons and ligaments. And that can be important, especially if someone's stretching. You'll find you feel more flexible. I do. After I do a sauna therapy, I can stretch a little bit better. Everything's very relaxed. Again, I keep saying it over and over again, but I can't emphasize enough how important it is to reduce sympathetic stimulation, improve blood flow, and again, release of toxins. Reducing heat production and adding heat from an external source reduces the need for the body to produce its own heat. Increased alkalinity of the system. Normalization of the alkaline acid-base balance. This can be determined by the balance of minerals. Toxins generally acidify, just like a lot of we talk about that all the time, things that acidify. We want to tend to be a little more alkaline if we can, impairing the circulation, allowing accumulation of acid end products, and many bacteria and viruses secrete acid. So phase two. So this is common to all forms of sauna when it comes to phase two. Doesn't matter which type of sauna it is. Increasing of the body temperature. So you're literally laying there in the sauna and you get hotter. If I put a thermometer on you and ran it in a real-time data collection device, I would actually see all of a sudden abruptly when you go into phase two, that's how you'd know you're in phase two. You're going to feel it. I feel it in my chest. Like all of a sudden I feel like I'm on a Stairmaster. But another way to identify phase two would be to actually measure your temperature real time while you're undergoing sauna therapy. So phase two, common to all forms, promotes death of the weaker cells. We need our cells to die. Programmed cellular death is called apoptosis. And apoptosis is a good thing. When the cells get old, they need to go. That's one of the problems with cancer, is cells oftentimes lose their ability to recognize when it's time for that cell to die. They no longer obey the rules, and they live indefinitely and then spread all over the body and go crazy and grow malignantly. So cancer cells are unable to dissipate heat. So a lot of times, this is kind of counterintuitive, but for me, for instance, renal cell tumors. One time I had a patient who had a renal cell tumor in one of their spine, and I had to remove it. It was a big deal. We had to crack the chest, drop a lung, get in there, remove that renal tumor. And the renal tumor is supervascular. I was like, wow, that thing's really bloody. So you think, wow, that would really have the ability to remove heat, remove toxins, get good nutrition. But the truth is that although these tumors are very vascular, it's very disorganized. It's like a highway where the road ends and begins in a way that it's undrivable. And so although they're very vascular, they're not able to efficiently dissipate heat. And that's why the Egyptians found they could shrink tumors by applying heat to them, because they would heat up the tumor. The blood supply of that tumor was so abnormal that it could not use that blood flow to dissipate the heat, and it would kill the cancer. And so phase two, by heat, when your body gets hotter, can kill cancer, can kill bacteria, can kill fungi, parasites, cells infected with viruses, cells with DNA damage, again, apoptosis, or really affected by any toxin, whether it's radioactivity, heavy metals, or defective for some other reason. We won't get into this, but there's something called heat shock proteins. There's still a lot of research that's going into this, but heating suspends the production of normal proteins, induces the production of special proteins called heat shock proteins that restore normal cellular activity. They enhance the immune system. They improve cellular energy production, respiration, elimination, and it should be heat shock proteins. I'll just edit this while I'm sitting here. I'm sick of It's kind of funny. Let's just edit this real time. Heat shock proteins can inhibit the growth of cancer and improve recovery from heart attacks. So that's a couple of areas where they've looked at these heat shock proteins. But the bottom line is sauna therapy, by entering phase 2, can affect the amount or the presence of these very beneficial, or at least apparently beneficial, again, the research is still relatively young, heat shock proteins. And we'll get into that too much. Again, phase 2 we're talking about, where your temperature goes up, your heart starts beating faster, and all these things start to happen when you're doing sauna therapy. Again, this is plugging this into the wall, guys. There's nothing expensive here. You can buy one of these and use this every day to maintain your health. Improving genetics, improve circulation, remove radioactive particles. The heat shock proteins increase DNA replication, transcription, and translation, and heating helps kill weaker and mutated cells. We've kind of said that. Sorry if I'm being over redundant a bit. Many people today have damaged DNA due to toxic exposure, both radiation and chemicals. In medical school, we learned about this thing called the thymine dimer. Ultraviolet radiation comes down, it hits one of your DNA molecules, you get this thing called a thymine dimer. It's an abnormal deal, and if your body didn't have this enzyme called reverse transcriptase that came along immediately, cut that piece out and put the correct thymine configuration into your DNA, you would develop skin cancer. We develop cancer, guys, 100,000 times a day. It's just that our body's normal immune system, when it's healthy, when it gets the nutrition that it needs, it goes back and it repairs that DNA damage or deals with that, whatever that abnormality is, before you ever develop a cancer. We get the beginnings of a cancer 100,000 times a day, and our beautiful, amazing immune system, when it's treated properly, when our bodies are treated properly, heals itself, just like the thymine dimer. Otherwise, we'd all have skin cancer from the time we're, born. Phase 2 increases heart rate, enhances circulation, increases the temperature. The increased temperature increases the heart rate, and this is not due to sympathetic stimulation. So your heart rate also increases from sympathetic stimulation. An important point here is that if you go to the gym and you get on the Stairmaster, you'll increase your heart rate and you'll sweat. You'll say, hey, why do I need to get into a sauna? I'll just go to the gym and get on the Stairmaster, or I'll go jogging for 5 miles. I sweat like crazy. But it's the sympathetic type of stimulation. So the mechanism by which your heart increases stroke volume is not through stimulation of the sympathetic system, but through heating of the muscle cells themselves, okay? Number one. Number two, the blood's not being shunted preferentially to the organs and then carrying toxins to the surface. In fact, the organs are being restricted in terms of their blood flow when you're in a fight or flight state. So it's very different. The sweating that occurs, I'm not saying that no toxins get pushed out when you're sweating at the gym, okay? But the healthy stimulation of the parasympathetic nervous system occurs with sauna therapy. That doesn't occur on the Stairmaster. The excretion of toxins and detoxification of the congested internal organs occurs. That doesn't occur when you're on the Stairmaster at the gym, etc. So I think you guys understand what I'm saying. Rather, due to the increase in membrane permeability of the cardiac muscle, or membrane to ions, and that's what I was trying to say. It's not from the sympathetic stimulation, it's from actual changes in the cell, from temperature changes themselves, and this results in an acceleration of the self-excitation process. Boom, you have increased stroke volume. Increased cardiac output, while simultaneously shunting blood to the surface of the skin, maximizes detoxification. You just don't get that from the Stairmaster. It's not physiologically possible. Okay, so I'm basically kind of going back and covering some of the things that I hit in bullet points. And since I covered maybe some of like this already a little bit when I talked about the lymph system, but basically it helps resolve infiltrates, edema, exudates. Infiltrates are any material in tissue that is foreign to it. An exudate is a fluid or cell debris that has accumulated in the tissue that has gone outside the vascular system and is in. That's what causes edema. You've seen grandma with her swollen ankles because she's unable. The cardiovascular system is pushing fluid into the extremities at a rate faster than the lymphatic system can resorb it and push it back into the venous system through the thoracic duct. Not that important, but I just thought I'd mention it for those that may be familiar with that. But I'm just going to do all kinds of editing tonight. This is hilarious. Okay. Normalizing enzymatic activity when body temperature is low. So low body temperature is common, and even Roby talks about this. Low body temperature is bad. or it can be bad when it comes to killing critters. Low body temperature impairs enzymatic activity, and restoring to a more normal temperature improves this activity, enzymatic activity. You want those enzymes to work normally. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about sauna. We talked about phase one. We talked about toxins we want to get out. We talked about the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. We've talked about the different phases of sauna therapy, phase two being what our ultimate goal is to get to phase two. And now we're going to talk about some different types of sauna. So let's quickly talk about just a hot rock sauna. Hot rock sauna, it actually will have some far infrared wavelength, but not nearly as much as a true far infrared sauna. But in a hot rocks or a steam room at the Gold's Gym, you're still raising your body temperature. You're still telling your body, hey, you've got to get rid of this heat and forcing it into a parasympathetic state. You're still going into phase one, phase two. You're still sweating. Your body still has to get better at sweating. Like I said, it gets 10 times better at sweating over a 6-week period. All those things still happen. But now we're going to talk about the things that can happen on top of that with a far infrared sauna and then a near infrared sauna. So far infrared sauna, is a newer type of sauna. This is, not your hot rock sauna, not your Gold's Gym sauna. It's a newer type of sauna that emits a different wavelength of light. It typically uses a ceramic element to generate the heat, and it's a higher temperature. It's not as high as say a sweat lodge, but it's not. It's higher than a near infrared sauna. So some of the benefits of far infrared sauna is it does do deep tissue heating. So a conventional hot rocks or a Gold's Gym sauna heats the surface of your skin. Far infrared sauna and near infrared sauna heat you from within. They send wavelengths that penetrate, in the case of far infrared sauna, about 1 inch to 1.5 inches deep into your skin. So any tumors that are forming, any sort of bugs that are living there can be killed by that increase in heat. You can eliminate those, whereas a surface isn't going to penetrate heat deep into your skin the same way a far infrared sauna. And a near infrared sauna penetrates twice as deep, and that's what we're going to talk about, and that's why a near infrared sauna is even better. Other than that, they're very similar. It allows sweating to begin sooner than a hot air sauna, than a surface heating sauna. Hot air saunas only heat at the surface, allow sweating, and far infrared allows sweating at a lower temperature. So it's not so hot as a regular hot air sauna. And many find this more comfortable, and many find the near infrared sauna even more comfortable because it's even a lower temperature. I'll show you a chart of those temperatures at the end. A bit additional benefits. I don't completely understand this. There's a lot of people really have this whole thing about water. I'm not going to claim to completely understand this, but apparently there's some science behind it. But it enhances the activity of water molecules in terms of resonating water molecules, causes deep heating. The water is exposed to reverse osmosis, it loses energy. Water exposed to reverse osmosis loses energy, and the exposure restores activity to the water molecules. And also, guys, does anyone have questions? I kind of have it. I can hear you fine. Love it all. That's amazing. How do you feel about kids? I think it's fine for kids, Jason, to have sauna therapy. I think if someone's feeling sick or is uncomfortable while they're having their sauna therapy, then absolutely take them out and try again, maybe another time, or try a different length. You have to work your way up. I've gotten up to the point where I do about an hour, 30 minutes to an hour, but I've done an hour, but it can get pretty brutal when you're doing an hour. But boy, do you lose, like I said, I've lost 2 to 3 pounds of water weight and really sweat out a lot of toxins in that hour. But it becomes a mental exercise. It can get tough. Okay, so issues, EMF. Some people are concerned about EMF, but quite frankly, I wouldn't worry about EMF in a sauna. You should probably worry about all the other EMF in your life, your cell phone, you're living near a power line, and we have so much EMF, it's ridiculous. So it's kind of like, why are you going to suddenly worry about EMF when you haven't worried about it before? But people who are really purists and really trying to up their game in terms of wellness will be concerned a little bit about the harmful EMF. And near infrared sauna is believed to not emit as much EMF. So infrared emitters and their power supplies can emit harmful EMF. Some companies claim to minimize or eliminate this. And infrared lamps do not emit significant EMF. So that's kind of interesting. You can get a lamp from Home Depot and build your own home sauna. And I wish I had found Lawrence's book. I would show you that, where you can basically build your own sauna for like $150, which is just as good as any $5,000 sauna. It's all about the wavelength and the penetration of the light into your skin and the sweating. Elimination. It doesn't have to be any sort of special magic deal. It's just basic physics. So infrared lamps, they're reddish incandescent lamps. These are at Home Depot for like 15 bucks a pop, I believe. They're a full spectrum infrared, both near and far. Mostly near infrared with some middle and far. And they add the benefits of color therapy. Again, I'm not going to get into color therapy, but there's a lot of people who are very into color therapy. Can be added to a hot air or a far infrared sauna. Okay, so you can get more of that near. So you can take an existing hot air sauna, add a few of these lamps to it, and now you got it all going on, which is interesting. Additional benefits of infrared lamps, near infrared lamps, shortening cluster chains. In other words, it shortens chains of polluted water molecules. CO and CO2 and sulfur dioxide are expelled into the air. In other words, it helps break down these toxins. Heavy metals, mercury and cadmium, precipitate. What that means, they fall out of solution, they fall out of the blood, then the body can either excrete them through the different excretory mechanisms, through the urine or through the skin. This does not occur with far infrared sauna. Okay, these type of shortening of cluster change. Shortening change decreases the specific gravity of water, improving absorption of nutrients and eliminating waste. So you're eliminating the waste. You're improving the quality of the water, so to speak, in your body, which then improves the absorption of nutrients. If you want to see that, if all this sounds like hocus pocus to you, get Lawrence Wilson's book. Go to Dr. Wilson's website. You can look him up, Lawrence Wilson, Sauna Therapy. Sorry, I don't have the book in front of me. I meant to have it. Had a busy day. I showed it actually when I was a few days ago. So go to my Facebook feed and you can see where I was shining my camera or whatever, aiming my camera at his book and saying, "Don't miss this talk." Additional benefits of narrow to near, accelerate inflammation. And inflammation is extremely important. Everybody thinks of inflammation as bad, and it is bad if it's caused by toxins and so forth, but inflammation is one of the 4 stages of healing. And so inflammation is extremely important to be able to create it. If I cut myself, the healing of that cut, or if I have a broken bone, the healing of that broken bone goes through multiple phases of healing, and that first one is the inflammation phase. And that inflammation phase is actually very important for successful remodeling of bone or for skin to heal, etc., any organ. It promotes fibroblast proliferation. Those are the cells that produce the collagen that make the scar in a skin when you cut your skin, and they do all kinds of other things in the body. It enhances chondroplasia. That's for cartilage. It upregulates the synthesis of type 1 and 3 procollagen, messenger RNA. Again, a little technical, but the point is it does good stuff, and it's been proven in scientific studies. If you go look at Dr. Wilson's book, you can look up some of those studies if you want to see some of that stuff for yourself. Speeds up bone repair and remodeling, improves wound revascularization, and accelerates tissue repair. Also near infrared sauna. We're talking about just near, guys. The near, the wavelength of near, the depth of penetration of near, the release of did I say CO earlier? I meant NO, nitric oxide. NO, like no, yes versus no. That's who got the Nobel Prize. Why am I thinking I said CO? Maybe I did. But anyway, NO, nitric oxide, releases or causes the smooth muscle to release and increases blood flow to whatever the area is that's injured. You can shine that light on that area and increase blood flow to an injured area or an infected area or healing area and enhance that healing. It reduces lipid peroxidation, enhances O2 production. So that helps preserve tissues. Okay, peroxidation is actually something that your body does to purposely to destroy something, to eat it up and recycle it. Body's pretty good at recycling a lot of times. Increases production of active O2 and neutrophils, inhibits tumor growth. Again, I don't know, maybe I'm getting into the weeds here too much. We're moving along. I'll try to move along. We're almost done. And if you have your questions, start hitting them. Hit me with your questions down there on the Facebook feed. I know I'm going through this stuff quickly, but I'm happy to answer the questions. Let's fix our talk here. I didn't realize how many little typos I had. So easy to fix them this way. So for relieving pain, studies indicate that near-infrared light can reduce pain, probably through the increased blood flow, removing of the toxins that cause pain. Direct effects on peripheral nerves that modulate prostaglandins, which are inflammatory mediators in inflammatory conditions like arthritis. Specific frequencies promote nerve degeneration, including regeneration of the spinal cord. This is not shown in human models, I don't think. It was in animal models, but it's very interesting. Relieves muscle spasms, relieves ischemia due to impaired blood flow, again through the release of nitric oxide, improves oxygenation, removing irritants and toxins, killing pathogens. Again, the heat kills the pathogens, the release of nitric oxide increases the blood flow and helps improve oxygenation and brings in the good stuff, brings out the bad stuff. So, again, color therapy. I'm not going to get into this. I don't know a lot about this. I gave this talk before and I said that then too. Sorry, I haven't gone to look it up. But it's an ancient healing modality. And a lot of people believe very strongly in color therapy and believe that it nourishes certain areas and organs in the body. Your ability the cool thing about near infrared lamps, the kind you can buy at Home Depot, is you can focus the energy, you can aim it at a specific or problematic area, like a stiff back or a healing wound on a leg, which I'm getting ready to show you, which is pretty cool. The amazing things that can be done with sauna therapy with this technology. So enhanced effects on DNA, deeper penetration. So I said earlier that it goes to an inch and a half and then maybe twice that. Some studies even show that it goes to almost 4 inches. 100 millimeters is roughly 4 inches. 25.4 millimeters is 1 inch. So it's almost 4 inches deep, but certainly it goes 2 inches, 3 inches deep. This increasing heat, again, helps kill the evil cells, the tumor cells, the disabling cells, the mutated cells. It assists in the regeneration of normal body tissue. It's very important for degenerative diseases. It is very important for degenerative disease to damage DNA. Sorry, getting tired. Long day. So here's a little breakdown. Here's a little chart, and it shows traditional sauna. There's the heat. So you can see it gets pretty hot in a hot rocks in a Indian hot rock sauna. Whatever. And I say, American Indian. In a far infrared sauna, it's cooler, significantly cooler, but still not nearly as low as, say, a near infrared sauna or a lamp sauna, which has the deepest penetration, heats you from within, and does not heat the surface of your skin. It's a lot more comfortable with a lot more benefit. The penetration of the skin is really just surface heating for a traditional sauna. But the far infrared gets about 1.5 inches. The near infrared or the lamp sauna, which is primarily near infrared, goes deeper, 3 inches. You have to preheat a sauna. If you're going to do a hot rocks tent, you've got to get that hot rocks tent hot before you can get any benefit out of it. I'm going to go through your questions. I'm just seeing that you're getting the questions. Sorry, guys. And in a near infrared and a far infrared don't take much time to heat. Infrared benefits the most probably. Color therapy is in play when it comes to a near infrared with lamp therapy. The need to rotate in the sauna, yes. And when Dr. Wilson talks about building your own sauna, he talks about getting this cluster of these lamps that you might get at a hardware store, hanging them in the shower, sitting on a stool in the shower, and literally just rotating your body. You aim your body at one point, and you got to be about 12 to 18 inches away. These things are hot. You will burn yourself, so you have to be careful. And you rotate yourself like a rotisserie and just sweat it out. Let that lamp penetrate as deep as 4 inches or 100 millimeters into your body. Heat up those cells, kill those cancer cells, kill those viruses, kill those bacteria, etc. And then just keep spinning around. The need to rotate, so that's in the lamp sauna. Operating expenses probably the lowest with the lamp sauna and highest with the traditional sauna. Okay, let me go back to a couple questions here. Now, I'm sorry I missed these. Great talk. Go into the weeds, all you need to do. Thank you for sharing. Did you say the lamps from Home Depot are near and far infrared? It can be added to a... Yes, they can. If you have a far infrared sauna, it may not be necessary. But yeah, sure, if you want to get the near infrared, you get the near infrared wavelengths with those lamps. That's correct. And they're just the little red lamps, incandescent lamps that you can buy at Home Depot. Better to have both. Yes, I think so. I think that when you use the lamps, they do have both, actually. And absolutely, there's nothing wrong with having both. The heat they produce will simulate a traditional hot rocks kind of sauna, surface sauna, and so you don't really have to have that also. So you could have the near and far elements without being inside of a Indian sweat lodge and still get those benefits. Let's see. Okay, those are the only questions we have so far. Okay, so now there's a guy named here. Let me pop back up this up. So there's a guy named Burke, and he is a PhD. You can look him up. I forgot his first name. Thomas, maybe, I can't remember. And he did research on light therapy, near infrared light therapy, at the University of Colorado, I believe. I think he's retired now and is in the private sector developing red light type therapy, but he did research for quite a while. And he's got a couple of talks, one that's very impressive. I'm going to show you a slide right now from one of those talks. This is absolutely amazing. So I'm going to show you something that I consider to be pretty darn amazing. So, and he's got, there's some other slides in there as well. So this is an 88-year-old, very old person who has a severely diabetic leg. And when I was in medical school and in residency, it literally would have pretty much been malpractice not to cut this person's leg off, okay? Because the leg can become gangrenous, infected, infected tissue, those bacteria then seed the blood and they cause sepsis and they release those endotoxins. I think we mentioned endotoxins earlier. Those endotoxins cause a drop in your blood pressure and usually death. And so to fail to cut this person's leg off would be considered, honestly, malpractice. You know, I never heard of this treatment when I was in residency. And so, this would have been surprising to even know about this. So this patient received a lamp therapy, okay? So instead of having their leg chopped off, the doctor, she's 88 years old, there's a lot of risk to operating on her. The doctor said, okay, go ahead. I'll give you a month, I believe was the story. Again, you can look up Dr. Burke's video. He talks about this. It's on YouTube. And after a month, it went from, let's see, January 8th. Yeah, it's not even a month, really. It's actually slightly less. You see it going from January 8th, 1999, January 5th, 1999. The thing is nearly completely healed. Remember, this lamp is penetrating deep into these tissues, maybe as much as 100 millimeters. Even if it's half that, it's fantastic. The heat killed the bacteria. It increased the blood flow. You can see what's called marginalization. It's that little white edge. It's real important when you're trying to get a wound to heal. That means the epithelium is healthy and it's growing and the wound is closing. And so you can see the progression here. Again, another month later, and it all culminates into about 81 days later, which is not even 3 months later, this thing is essentially healed. Now you think, oh, when they stop the sauna therapy, doesn't all this get worse again and their leg comes off? No, he talked about some other cases where people were fine after having this treatment years down the road. And we're talking, I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was something like 20 minutes or 30 minutes of treatment 3 times a week. That's not much. It's really not. And so this light therapy is amazing. There's no pills that can do this. In surgery, we usually will cut their leg off below the knee or above the knee, depending on how bad the infection is and how far it goes up the leg. But that's very debilitating. It really is. It's a very debilitating procedure. So this is an example of how the healing occurs with these near infrared wavelengths of light. And to me, this is impressive because this 88-year-old didn't have a lot of options. When you're 88 years old, the risks of surgery skyrocket. And even though you cut this thing off, there's still poor blood flow. And sometimes the stump that you're trying to fit for a prosthetic doesn't heal properly because of the underlying condition. Okay, so there's my email. I put that up in the last talk. And you know what? I need to give away a free t-shirt. So I'm going to do that I'll do that probably tomorrow. I had a really busy day and I had to get this talk pulled up. I will look at my emails that we've collected from Spine Center, Texas. So it's not too late. Oh, here, let me transition on me. It's not too late. It's amazing. Sahni's not wearing a Spine Center, Texas t-shirt. He's wearing his Spine Center, Texas scrubs. But anyway, so go to my Facebook page, go to join my email list, and I'll draw your name, and I promise I'll do it tonight or tomorrow and make sure that we give away that free t-shirt. I've just been busy. So if there's any other questions, please ask. I'm looking at the people who asked some questions. I think I've answered them all. I hope this talk was useful. I will also try to post a link to where you can buy a sauna. There's actually a sauna. I'll try to post it in this. It's $800. It's produced by a friend of mine named Paul Baratero. It's actually my Dr. Sahni link, which I never promote ever, but I'll throw this on there. So if someone wants to buy one, feel free to buy one using my link. It fits in your closet, guys. I should have taken a picture of mine. Maybe I'll do another Facebook Live video with my phone showing you this little tiny tent, basically, with a chair in it. It's not fancy, but it doesn't outgas. It gives you the frequencies of light that you need. It helps you lose weight. It helps you detoxify. It folds up, and so you can get it out of the way. And it's $800. I mean, it's really, for a high-quality sauna, that's really a good price. So if anyone doesn't have any more questions, then I think we're done. Yes, and I will give you the link. Okay, guys. And if I don't, just send me an email to that email address, and then I'm going to put it on here. I'll remember to put it on here. Hope everyone has a good evening, and I guess I'll play my little outro.